Hello, everyone. This is Brandon, and I want to welcome you all here to this episode of the Tech Tidbit. I'm so excited to be here back with you all. And without really any further ado, let me please welcome my guest for today, Mrs. Karen Basemore-Person. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me, Brandon.
Yeah, of course. I'm just so glad to have you here. I know we've been planning this for a while, but I'm so glad we were able to get our schedules coordinated to do this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so before we really get started, I did want to ask, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for asking. Just a regular day in the school neighborhood, so pretty busy, but testing day, but it's a great day. How about you?
Yeah, I am doing well. Yeah, it's definitely a great day thus far. I'm absolutely loving my time in graduate school.
Awesome. And congratulations on your graduate studies.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so I would really love for you to first of all take a moment to go ahead and introduce yourself before we go ahead and get started into this.
Okay, so my name is Karen Basemore-Person. I am the principal here at Booker T. Washington Middle School in Newport News, Virginia. I've been with Newport News Public Schools now, going on 23 years, working as a teacher, as a special education teacher, general education teacher, instructional technology coach, and an administrator.
Well, that is so great to hear, and so I really can't, wait to dive into this. And so you mentioned, just a moment ago that you had like several positions leading up to where you are now. And so, overall, how has that progression been for you?
It's really been great because not only having those various positions, I've been at every single level, elementary, middle, and high school. And so seeing the students at their, at the beginning when they are building their foundation has been great. Newport News Public Schools has some great resources and strategies in place to help students grow and excel. Our middle school, where we continue to try to build and strengthen that foundation, has some really great, amazing programs there too. And then, of course, high school. And with the addition of our magnet programs at the elementary, middle, and high schools, our students have an opportunity just to explore some of their interest. So it's been great to see the students just kind of grow and change. And so being here for 23 years, I've seen the students at every level kind of progress through middle and high school. So I've seen them at each stage.
Well, that is really great that you are able to, to have the experience on each of the different levels and sort of see like where people are at different stages within their life. And so I guess what's been sort of the most intriguing part about, being able to do all three levels in different capacities?
Well, I started out at the elementary level. It's just nice to kind of see students build those foundational skills with the reading and the math and even their social skills. And so kids really just are eager to learn and they need you. You feel like you can help them with all of their problems at that level, that K-5 level. And then I made a jump and went to high school. And so at the high school level, there's more independence. And so you're really seeing students just branch out into the areas that they're really interested in. And so it's nice to see them apply those foundational skills and even add a little bit of their innovative, creative ideas and talents into things. And just explore and grow even further. The place where I probably had my limited experience was middle school. So when I finally got to middle school, I was like, oh, okay, all right, this is that other piece of the puzzle where a lot of things occur, but students also have an opportunity where they're just trying to figure out who they are. And so middle school can be some trying years for kids. But it is great just to be able to, it has been great to see how students have grown and developed academically and socially at each of the levels and how they have developed their skills and branched out to different areas of their interests along the way as well.
That is really interesting. And especially considering that you went from, early on with elementary and then straight into high school, and then now you're in the in between stage where it's like a little mixture of everything.
Yes. Yes. They truly are trying to figure themselves, who they are. They're no longer the elementary students, so they're trying to, oh, I'm a bigger person now and I want to be that teenager, but they're also kind of discovering who they really are and trying to become these younger adults. And it's challenging, but it's also fun just to help them along that journey.
That is so great to hear. And so And so right now, as of speaking, we are now approaching, 3 years since the COVID-19 pandemic has closed everything down and sort of shifted the way that we think about like the world around us. And so, coming on these 3 years, what are some of your thoughts about how everything has changed, especially in regards to education?
Wow, that's a great question, Brandon. I will tell you, before we shut down, we really felt like we had a good process in place as far as schooling. Of course, there were really some areas we needed to improve upon, especially the use of technology, and giving our students that opportunity at that voice and choice in some of their activities they're learning. Going into the pandemic and everyone being forced to learn those new technology tools, our teachers were amazing. Our students were even more amazing because everybody just, embraced it, took some risk, and the students were able to, I really feel like they were able to share their voice a lot more with the use of the technology and having the variety of options to demonstrate their mastery of skills. The only thing that I will tell you that has been a little challenging over that time is we slowed down the pace of the learning during the pandemic because, of course, we were trying to wrap our heads around how we continue to deliver some rich instruction virtually. And our students were, so they were not exposed to the same pacing of instruction. But now that we're back from the pandemic, that has probably been the most difficult part for our students, or area for our students to get back into the swing of things, because we've heard from our students and they're saying, there's a lot of work, they're moving too fast, and we're at the pace that, or getting back to the pace that we were pre-pandemic, but the kids, is just taking some time for them to catch up with us and get back into that learning pace. And so that has been really a huge struggle, but also some of the social interactions. Our kids, it's almost as if they went into a standstill, and in the way that they interacted with their peers. And while the virtual tools were great to allow them to kind of text and interact, some students didn't necessarily embrace the video components or get on the phone and actually talk with each other. And they didn't have those opportunities to, if there were, there was some little conflicts here or there, to have the adults there with them to help them work it out. And so that's where we're really seeing a little bit more challenges as far as the social emotional learning components and how our kids socialize with each other. But we're getting there, because here at Booker T, we've even incorporated some of those old school programs that we had years ago, like Expect Respect, where our kids are learning how to treat each other and engage with each other and stand up for each other in a respectful, responsible way, and be the ambassadors and the leaders in their groups, so that they bring their own peers along this journey with being just of great character, and treating each other with kindness and respect.
That is interesting to hear. I mean, especially from an administrator perspective of being able to see everything, sort of firsthand of how the learning was going on and how it shifted, especially like you mentioned, the social interactions with, with others, and trying to sort of rebuild, because not everyone necessarily would have had a network per se of peers to reach out to. And so, like, with all that time that was sort of lost interacting, trying to remember how to interact with others again.
Absolutely. Some of our kids were fifth graders when we went into the pandemic, and now they're seventh and eighth graders. And so they didn't have that true transition to middle school, and the same with high school. So, there have been some challenges, but we're working that through it. And the kids are open, to some of the suggestions, the use of the strategies, rebuilding, reestablishing the cultures in our buildings. And so we'll get back there, and very quickly too.
That is good to hear that, that the rebuilding process, has begun and is underway. And so I know you were at the high school level as a administrator when everything initially, shut down. And so now you're at middle school. So I guess for you, was there any like noticeable like major differences between, I guess, the impact it had on high schoolers versus the impact it had on middle schoolers?
Yes, because even with our ninth grade students, when they come in, they go through a transition program as well. And so they have an opportunity to come and spend a day at the building before school opens to get to know just the lay of the land. And they have an opportunity to meet their teachers, find out what type of clubs, organizations, and activities are happening in the building. And so many of our students kind of missed out on that at the high school level. And so you figure a ninth grader coming in during the pandemic missed their ninth grade year, most of, or if not all of their 10th grade year. And so they came into it in their junior year, not really being really freshmen in the building when you start talking about my first exposure to being in the building, class changes, what lunch looks like, what after school activities looks like, how do I navigate talking and communicating with my counselor about my interests, how do I even get an opportunity to see these club expos or have these colleges come out and tour, or even just have organizations in the community that come into the buildings. When I was at Woodside, that building opens at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, and students are there until 9 o'clock at night, just engaged in various activities. And so our kids missed out on those opportunities. And so they're coming in at their junior year, just trying to figure out, now I need to start applying to getting myself ready for college. I'm applying for that college application process. And so that's where the big difference was for our high school students. But our middle school students, they're used to being in a class with one teacher, maybe two. Maybe they switch between two teachers for math, science, social studies, and English. But for the most part, one teacher, 25 to 30 kids, students all day long, and they rotate in every class with the same group of students, the same teacher, minus the related arts. And then they go into middle school and they have four core teachers: a math, science, social studies, and an English teacher. And then they have four related arts teachers, because they see two related arts classes on one day and two related arts classes on the other day. And so now they've gone from one teacher to 7 to 8 teachers. And that's a huge change for a middle school student. And so not being able to come in and have that transition time during the pandemic, and then just being thrown into 8th grade after, not being there for 2 years. And it's like, oh, well, I have to move through the building. How does that look? Because I've never moved from one class to the next class within 80 to 90 minutes or 45 minutes for the related arts. And so that was challenging for students. And so they're just trying to kind of figure it out and learn how to be responsible, because that's a lot of freedom as well for an elementary a student that now has moved to middle school, and someone's walking you in a line and taking you everywhere you need to go, and you sit with your class during lunch, and it doesn't look that way in middle school. So just a whole lot of transitional pieces that the students missed out on during the pandemic, that they are just trying to maneuver and figure out. And they are. It's just taking a little more time than it typically does when they have that opportunity to transition smoothly.
That is so interesting. I mean, to hear, and especially like even relating to like my experiences before the pandemic, like it's rough enough, like to just go from elementary to middle school as is, let alone not really being able to have full closure with elementary, and then just being sort of thrown into middle school.
Yes, yes. And middle school is just a different world, and it's an interesting world, and it's exciting to see, but it's scary for kids and sometimes the adults as well.
Yeah, that is definitely quite true. And so I guess for you during that time as an administrator, like what were you doing during the time where there weren't any physical students in the building?
I'll tell you, that was probably the saddest part of life for me, because, I love interacting with the students in the hallways, during class changes, before and after school. And so I just felt like I almost was disconnected from the students. I didn't get an opportunity to really meet and learn and build relationships with our newer students in the building. Of course, the students who had been there already, I had it was easier to engage with them because I had already established those relationships. So coming in the building, even when we were coming in and no one was in the building, kind of was an eerie feeling, because you're just used to the halls just being filled with a lot of laughter, just some fun times of learning, the whole teaching and learning process. But while we were home, I was on Zoom meetings with administrators. I was on the Zoom meetings with our lead teachers. I was popping into some of the Zoom classes just to observe the instruction that was taking place. I enjoyed being able to go into the breakout rooms and try to hear some of the dialogue that was taking place, or not, with the students, of course, because they were still trying to figure out, the high schoolers, how do we really collaborate on Zoom, and who's going to be the leader, and what does that look like on Zoom? Do I mute you, or who initiates the conversation? So it was fun and interesting. But I think it was a learning process for everyone, the students, the teachers, the parents. So that's what we did. And I held some conferences with students. I kept, stayed on track with students academically and how they were doing. And if students were not excelling well academically, I would call them in and have a Zoom conference with them and their parents. And we would develop a strategy to help them be more engaged with the lessons, and how to seek out help on those Wednesdays, the support days, and navigate a schedule so that they could get the work done offline, because it's almost like they were thrown into the college lifestyle, because you have to get up, you have to be where you're supposed to be. Sometimes parents were off at work if they had to, and so kids were left to um, kind of be more responsible, and it was tough for them. But those were some of the things that I did, just meeting with families, meeting with students, continuing with the meetings with teachers, to continue moving that instructional process, because we did not, even though the pacing slowed down, we didn't want students, to pretty much be a wash of a year. We wanted them to walk away with gaining some knowledge, and continuing to grow.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I'm glad at least that you all worked your best to try to make the most of the time, because even though, like, you all said that, like, it couldn't, there's no way it could necessarily be 100% equivalent to, like, how it was, before then, but at least trying to make the most of the resources that you all had at your disposal and just trying to make the most of it for the students.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so I suppose, like, during this time, I know we spoke a bit about, yeah, of course, the several downsides that there were to this time, but we also had the introduction of sort of, using this modern technology to sort of help advance our learning as well.
We did, and that was a fun part. I will tell you, our instructional technology coaches, they did an amazing job. The division put a plan in place where teachers learned how to use Canvas. Now, could the rollout have been smoother for everyone? Absolutely. Of course, we would have liked more time to learn it and embrace it, but pandemic came, and we were back to trying to figure out how to get learning started immediately. But they also pushed out some really nice web 2.0, some interactive web-based tools for the teachers to have engaging lessons with the students, even just learning the basic features of Zoom, just to ensure that while they're delivering instruction, they still wanted the students to be able to engage with responding via chat or using polls. And so a lot of technology was used. And I will say, even as administrators, we were learning the tools as well. So we were joining in on some of those sessions so that we could be familiar with it, because the best, for us, we always want to model what we're wanting everyone to roll out. And so we were trying to figure out ways that we could deliver and use those same tools even when we were having our staff meetings virtually. So it was a great time to just throw the technology in at everyone, and have them have the opportunity to take those risks without feeling too intimidated, or feeling like someone's going to come in and judge them because it didn't roll out so smoothly. Well, it was, everyone, we extended grace to everyone during that time period, so you couldn't do anything but thrive and grow if you wanted to try something new, and that's what we did.
That's so great that, I mean, at least y'all were able to utilize those technologies. And I know for some students, not all students, but yeah, some of them really strived, and did, so much better in the, in the virtual environment than probably many of us would have even realized.
And you know what? You are absolutely right there, because I can't tell you the number of times I've gone into a classroom where students have been there in person, and you only see, a handful of students who are talking out, raising their hand, responding to the teacher, talking with their peers. And then you have, some students who are sitting back and they never really have their voice heard, whether it be because they're kind of shy and kind of intimidated, whatever the reason being, or maybe they're still processing things and someone else has the answer and they're blurting it out or getting it out before they have a chance to really formulate it. The technology, the being in the pandemic gave every kid an opportunity to have a voice in the learning. And so that was a really great piece, because teachers even said that when they were interacting with students via chat in the classroom, they never really heard from the student. It was like pulling teeth trying to get them to engage and speak in the classroom. And they were giving them all kinds of dialogue and conversation during the pandemic, using some of those chat features and the communication via email.
That is so great that it was able to really engage those audiences and those students, and so I suppose like going into a physical environment for for those who decide to continue with traditional schooling, I guess. Had there been any, I guess, work to try to figure out how to keep those students just as engaged as they were?
Well, I will tell you, Newport News did a great thing. They created the Virtual Learning Academy here in Newport News. And so we provided an opportunity for students who said, being in that big population with all of the students, it was just too much for me. I have anxiety with being in the large groups, or I don't feel comfortable talking and so, or interacting with my peers in person, but I'm a rock star with the content, and I can talk with my peers virtually or engage with them on phone. And so having that virtual learning academy was awesome. And they implemented that for our ninth through 12th grade students last year, and actually rolled it out to K-12, a small amount of K-5 students, so one class at each level this year. And then, of course, brought middle school students into it. They even, I worked with the team, and we pulled in the flying classroom, because we knew when our students started engaging in those science lessons, we wanted them to have an opportunity at some hands-on on experiments. And so with the flying classrooms, they provided each 6th through 8th grade students with a kit of all of the material that they were going to be learning over the course of the school year. And so the kids could get on each week or every other week. And so as they're learning the material for a unit, then they actually apply it to a science lesson. And so, it gave them an opportunity to extend that learning. And so they still have some virtual learning opportunities out there for some of our students. Of course, every student isn't able to tap into that for whatever their family structure or setup may be. And so some parents want their kids to be in a physical building with adults present because they're not able to be home. And so for the students here, we still have more of a blended model. We want them engaging and interacting with each other in the classroom, but we do still allow them to use those technology tools. We're still using Canvas. We're still using some of the other tools out there as well for them to interact with. I like to call it edutainment, but it's really like game-based playing, playing some games as you're learning some skills. And so the kids are still doing those things here in the building. So we're trying to hit every student at not only their level of learning, but also to their learning style, and still be able to, I keep saying voice, but to still make sure that every student has a voice, because that's the only way that you truly know if students are mastering skills and are actually extending it beyond what they've learned.
That is so true. And you had the pleasure of being one of the inaugural administrators over the Virtual Learning Academy. I mean, how was that to sort of be at the forefront of that when it was first starting?
Oh, it was awesome. I enjoyed it because, of course, we kicked off with what we called our open house, our in person open house, where we had everybody, because, of course, we were still in the pandemic. And so we had a big old tent outside, and we had all of the teachers set up in stations by content. And so all of our English teachers were together, our math teacher, science, our world language teacher. And so everyone just came on out at their designated times, and they had an opportunity to rotate around and meet our teachers. We pushed out an esports team, so we wanted to still give our students an opportunity at some clubs and organizations here in the building, or just virtual clubs and organizations, because esports was a virtual club. And so we even reached out to our athletic directors at each of the high schools to try to get them to send us some material, and they did, so that our students still could engage in those athletic sports, those teams on those teams during the winter, spring time frames in the fall. And so it was really nice just to roll that out and see the involvement and the engagement of parents coming and meeting the students in person for the first time. But then, because it helped us to establish those relationships and put a face with a name, and for the students to do the same thing. So now that when we're working with each other online, it just builds that personal relationship. But not only that, what we did at the Virtual Learning Academy is we didn't make it just 100% virtual. We gave them an opportunity to come in once a week and get that in-person support. And so we had students come on in and get the in-person support. We even had students who were on the esports team. They would come in and they would get that academic support. And then last 30 minutes, they would have an in-person practice in preparation for a game that they had coming up. So those things were really cool. We reached out to some of our supervisors, of course, and tried to, because the first year we started, we didn't have the flying classroom. So we were looking for some interactive sites or programs where our kids could actually work through some lab experiments. And so we had some of those tools in place as well. So it was really nice to implement that. We learned some things along the way. Our kids were very vocal and told us, some of the classes that we weren't able to offer because we didn't have the we couldn't hire teachers for every content. And so we utilized some of Virtual Virginia's programs for some of those AP classes. And our kids told us they didn't really kind of like that program much. Then we started working on how do we implement our own AP program here. And so that was like the next phase. And that's what they're working on now. And they're really doing some creative things. We even remodeled the classrooms over there to build in a flexible learning style or model of classes for all of the classes that our students would be in. And so that furniture came over the summer and probably into the fall as well. But it allowed the teachers to have an opportunity when kids were coming in. If the science teacher taught chemistry and biology, she could have a small group set up over here in either the soft seating area, where it's more of a Starbucks loungy style while they're working and conversating about some of the content, and then working over here with the chemistry kids at maybe the lab tables where they're actually working through an experiment. So we did some really cool things in very short period of time because it was a quick turnaround. I think in March they said we're rolling out this program, and by August we had kids coming in for the open house. So some neat things in implementing it, and they are continuing to build upon that program over there. So really excited, and I can't wait to see how it develops full circle.
That is pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, and yeah, one of these days I'll have to, yeah, I mean, see how that looks like for myself. Because I mean, I just love that concept. And like for me, for my college experience, like I actually intentionally was a virtual student because I just really strived in that environment. And I love that, yeah, that Newport News is working on some amazing initiatives for all sorts of learners.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so you mentioned, yeah, in your introduction that you also used to be an instructional technology coach.
Oh, yes, that was probably the fun job. I got to play with tech tools all day. I had a group of kids while I was actually working as an instructional technology coach approach me to start a robotics team when I was over at Warwick High School. So we started a robotics team. And so we, of course, first year was a big challenging year. We didn't win. We had a first tech challenge team. And so that's like the lower level. And then the first robotics team where you build a robot that can extend, I believe it is 120 pounds. And so we did that. We competed. It was great. We had a difficult time getting girls to join the team. So the second year, I told the guys, I said, so we're going to have an all girls first tech team and an all boys first tech team. And they said, oh, it'll never work. And so at the end of the season, when we were riding home on the bus, they said, we told you it wouldn't work. And you told us watch. And it worked out well. And actually, the girls came home with the trophy today, and we did not. And so it was just awesome. But as an instructional technology coach, I had the opportunity to just work with teachers and just go into the classroom and really coach them on the technology tools, not to learn technology tools, but how to apply them to enrich the lessons and make them more engaging for the students. And so they were the experts at the content, and I just came in as the expert of the technology tools. So I would hold these monthly workshops on the technology and introduce a new either program or process or tool for them to use in the classroom. And I always, when I taught the material or introduced it to them, I introduced it with content. So it's not just here, click here, and this is how this works. This is what it looks like when it's applied to this particular lesson. And so we had a lot of teachers that embraced the technology, and they would go out and they would use it. I would just kind of come in and be there for support until they felt confident to move on. And sometimes I would be there helping them with the teaching. But probably one of the dream jobs, because I got to play with technology and I like technology. So I always used to tell my family, I'm going to work to play today, because that's what it felt like.
So cool that you were able to do that. And yeah, because I definitely had actually no idea, like, prior to going into this. So it sort of all works out considering the sort of technology theme of, yeah, of this interview.
Absolutely. Cool.
Yeah. And so I suppose what I'm going to say to, I guess, start closing this out is so how do you see learning, I guess, continuously progressing, like, throughout the next couple months and years, now that we have so many of these tools at our disposal? And but at the same time, though, we're entering the sort of new normal where we're seeing, like, how far we can really get with helping expand our learning.
Oh, I just think now, like, I wish I had some of these things when I was teaching in the classroom, because you try to apply some of these strategies to help all of the students engage with lessons. And now with all of the technology that we have at our fingertips, you really can you can make it a paper pencil lesson for the student who really just that's what motivates them and that's how they learn. And you can just take it as far as pulling in some of those video tools or some of the Photoshop programs for students to create and demonstrate their learning. But the other piece too is I think it takes it a little further for us, because we're always trying to figure out, how do we do this here? We now have the opportunity to connect with classrooms across the world, and build some real relationships and expose students to how we learn, and have them, share their way of learning something. And we all know that students learn best from each other. They see things differently. When they share their perspective of something, it's like the light bulb goes off, and you're standing there as a teacher like, I just said that. I just don't understand. Like, I really just said that. But we didn't say it in their language, and use some of the analogies or the references that they're familiar with. And so I just think technology is going to take us if we continue to embrace it, it shouldn't be the only thing that we do. We do have to have some balance in the process, because we do need students to develop and learn those soft skills that they're going to need when they move out into the workforce. But using those technology tools in the classroom will really prepare them for some of those global jobs that are out there now that were not there when I was in high school or in college or first entering the workforce. Students are going to have the opportunity to work either from home or work in an office and work with someone way across the country, and build and create and be innovative. And hopefully they will build the next best app or the next best video conferencing tool or the next best AI. I know they have who is it, chatbot is out there now. I keep saying I'm going to explore it and see what he can do for me. But yeah, we want our kids to be able to do that and be the makers and the movers and shakers of creating and developing and expanding all of the the problems that we're having, be able to fix them with these tools collaboratively with people around the world.
I love that. I love that, like, that we're just really in a day and age where truly almost anything is possible, and we can just, make the technology our own and just use every resource at our disposal to just make things happen.
Absolutely. Sky's the limit.
Yeah, that is quite true. Well, thank you so much, Miss Basemore-Person, for coming here, and speaking with me. I've been looking forward to this for a while, and it's just so great to really have your perspective on this. And so I greatly appreciate you taking your time out to be here.
Well, thank you for having me, Brandon. It's definitely been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. For those of you who are watching, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Tech Tidbit. I always love having these conversations. Until we speak again, have a wonderful day, everyone, and I'll see y'all later. Take care.